You are listening to an independent production. All additional audio elements were provided copyright-free and belong to their respective owners. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the next episode of the Gateway to Eden podcast. Today we'll be talking about sustainability and longevity. Today I am joined by Bomb Carnivore, Silver the Fox, Vic Roll the Fluff Dragon, and Witchy Bits. Witchy Bits is actually our special guest today. She is the one who put this information together.
And then are you running the visual side of that on your end?
I am. I have the presentation up and running.
Perfect. Then I'll just go ahead and make sure that I follow my little script here properly so you're not getting jumped all over the place. Well, hi everyone, and thanks for having me today. I'm known as Witchy Bits or Missy B Artistry on TikTok, and I'm going to be speaking about something that I've had a passion for over 10 years now. I was raised a survivalist and forged myself into an activist, and I'm very glad that I get to share what those life experiences have taught me. So first, I'm sure some people are wondering, what the heck is this witch talking about? Sustainability and longevity as a concept may sound complicated, but what it boils down to is maintaining ourselves in a way that ensures our resources continue to be available for future generations. Now, that might sound like a complex and confusing issue, but it's mainly centered around three core principles: environmental, the planet; social, the people; and economic, profit. And this is something we should be keeping as a focal point in both planning and implementations. Don't let me lose you here. I'm about to break it down for you. When it comes to planning, the biggest thing is making sure that our first steps make genuine impact. We shouldn't be cutting corners. That's for greedy capitalists with more money than sense. Now,
I've got more sense than money.
Oh, sorry,
That's
go
the problem.
ahead. Yes, that is in fact a problem for many. Now, we do this the right way, and day one projects will continue to not only be useful, but profitable no matter how far down the line we get. When we think about this in the literal sense, take buildings and what we'll need to start ourselves out. Day one settlers aren't going to have full-blown houses and kitchens and garages, are they? No, we're going to be literally working from the ground up. So that means that we have to take our basic necessities and make sure that we are doing this in a way that will continue to show usefulness the further down the line we go. Day one settlers can build cabins and things of that nature that can be used for revenue in the future. Cooking sites will eventually be turned into campsites, etc. Sorry, go ahead.
Or we could do with like the bunk trailers for using disaster relief.
Absolutely. That's a great example. And one of the other things about that is when we include things like disaster relief into this portion of it, that covers multiple bases. It's not just one. We get environmental, we get social, we get economic all in one because we're helping the people around us.
And when you help the people around you, they tend to like you more.
Exactly.
They tend to go,
And that's why all of this
these are bad
connects.
people.
Like you were saying, the portable facilities repurposed for disaster relief, that was something that was mentioned on a previous podcast. And it's something that is absolutely something we should be going forward with. If we can show individuals from our community that we are here for good purposes and not bad, we are far less likely to have issues when things come down to us being big enough for there to be eyes on us. And on top of that, if we manage the land and resources effectively, we will be benefiting our ecosystem as well, instead of just taking from it. And that's one of the biggest things that I'd like to drive home, is that we cannot walk into an area with the expectation of stripping it bare and starting from that.
We're not trying to build a 1950s suburban utopia. We are going for a live with the land kind of vibe.
The vibe I
Exactly.
had was a hidden in the forest.
Precisely. I'm so glad you said that. So
Oh no. Oh no. Here we go.
That's great.
I will be getting to that. I promise. But by keeping this mindset and as part of our focus for both our goals now and in the future, we're keeping those pillars at the forefront, and that helps ensure continued success and prosperity further down the line. Now, when we keep present and future in the equation, today's solutions should never become tomorrow's crisis. Now, we talked about being hidden in the woods. And that is a really great idea, because one of the things that we can do in order to make sure that we're doing all of this property is by limiting our reliance on non-renewable resources, working with the land as opposed to stripping it down, and repurposing what we can to avoid reworking things more than necessary. All of that is going to equate down into us conserving our piece of land, whatever that looks like. And there's going to be parts of this where we have to just bite the bullet and invest a little more monetary than we would necessarily like, invest a little more ecosystem than we would necessarily like, things of that nature. But as long as we keep these points at the forefront, we can weigh those costs and benefits effectively. When it comes to the people, community outreach is going to be essential. It's going to be one of our key points. We are going to need to be looking into volunteer work, giving to or creating food banks and pantries, and being the good neighbor that we want to see in our world. Without us providing that, we cannot expect that in return. And by giving back to our communities, it's a double-sided blade with that. Not only are we forging a good relationship with the people around us, we are establishing a sense of trust within that community. So if things go wrong, they have our back. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. If you know that a specific group of people has been responsible for coming and seeing through disaster relief in your area consistently for years, and you all of a sudden hear that they are being harassed by, say, police or protesters or what have you, for whatever reason, do you think it is more or less likely that they are wanting to step in and be there on your behalf?
It's just like if your neighbor, who you've been on good terms with, who always shovels your driveway, starts getting bothered by some guy down the road you don't know, whose side you gonna be on?
Exactly. Now, unfortunately, for all that I'm talking about the environment and the people, which is really what I prefer to focus on, we do have to talk about profit. Capitalism, what a drag. But we do have to think about it just the same. So we should think about it in a way that gives back. What services can we offer our community? We're looking for trades and craftsmen. We're looking on how we can increase lumber and resources for our locals. We're looking on how we can provide food and housing for the people who need it. These are all things that we have to think about, unfortunately. But we can do it in a way that gives back to the people and feeds back into the previous two pillars.
One idea I've had is getting a proper service truck and offering my services to help local farmers and other construction companies and the like maintain their stuff at a reasonable rate.
And when we think about things in that nature, that feeds back in, because if you're offering that service to our local community at a good asking price that is comparable to what they would normally have to go through, then that shows that we're good people.
I was thinking maybe not necessarily at the comparable rate, but maybe even at a little bit of a discount.
Yeah, even considering discounts for locals would be a great way to make sure that, again, we are feeding into the prior two pillars. Anything that we can do to make sure that our profit does not exceed our plans for the people and the planet, the better. That moves us into implementation. What can we do right now? Well, we're gathering and building the community. We're having discussions about possible hurdles and concerns, and we are researching. I cannot stress enough, because if we do not have the knowledge on our side, we are going to fail.
We need the whole community to get together and go, hey, I've been concerned about this topic. Here's the research I've done. What do you think? So we all can look at it and weigh in on it, because this isn't just us, it's all of us.
Exactly. Just because the talking heads on screen right now are some of the original people to form the group does not mean that those are the people who are the only brain power behind the group. Don't leave it to us. Bring us your information, bring us your perspectives. We need it. So what are some areas we can be thinking about? First and foremost, food. We need to make sure that we can feed our people. If we don't feed our people, we don't have people. One of the biggest things that I want to make sure that I really stress here is that we need to be planning things like our shade trees first. And this isn't about shade trees. This is more than just about shade trees. If we are planning out things that are supposed to take years to be able to produce anything, that needs to be our first steps. Because if we wait on those things, we do not see the benefit of those. We don't even begin to see them start. We just see the beginning of it. But what we need to be thinking about is how we can implement them in a way that we manage to not only provide them for future generations, but are able to reap the rewards ourselves, which is why shade trees go first. And then, good God, let me talk about food forests. I need to. It's my favorite topic.
Friendly
So-
reminder, everybody. Witchy is actually the one who first brought up food forests forever ago. I think it was our second episode when we were talking about some of the first steps anyways, and she introduced me to it. I think it's a fun idea, but I'm going to let her talk about it.
Oh boy, I'm so excited. So, food forests, what the heck does that mean? The bare bones answer is it's how we take a plot of land and go from just a plain garden to a self-reliant system that feeds into itself and produces all year long. We go from, oh, we get a couple of harvests a year to any day of the year. You can go outside and find something to eat, not walking around and harvesting, just walking through and picking as you go. This is something that was established in the Americas well before it was settled. Before we saw the death of old growth forests, that is what they were.
Before what Europeans settled the country.
Yeah.
Because it was settled, it just wasn't settled by Europeans.
It was the natives who cultivated these forests. They knew and understood the importance of making sure that we were able to work alongside nature instead of just taking from her. The biggest thing that I want everyone to take away from that specifically is we have full potential to work side by side with nature without having it be a deterrent, without having it be detrimental, but rather having it be something that is a truly symbiotic relationship. We cannot be a parasite on Mother Nature, or she will spit us out like a bad tooth. It's something that needs to be considered. And part of that's companion planting. Moving to the next spot. Companion planting is part of it. It's literally taking plants that you know work well together and making sure that they're planted side by side. If you've ever heard of the three sisters, corn, squash, and beans, there's a reason that they planted things in this manner. They not only worked and as a way to save space in cultivation, they helped protect one another from the different things that could go wrong. There was ground cover, there was support for the climbing plants, and then there was the plant that kept everything going, everything upright, everything producing. When you take a look at things like that and the way that they were implemented originally, you're able to figure out not only how to create symbiosis for the environment, but also for ourselves when you think about it. Because if we as a group are bringing together people who work well together, we are also creating symbiosis. And so you see how it all comes together, how it all connects in that one little lovely little circle. We're going to keep coming back to the circle, I promise. Now, again, on that same pattern, we're going to need our perennials planted in the first years right alongside our annuals. Things that are not going to produce right away need to be planted first. Do you know how long it takes before asparagus is able to be harvested?
Not a clue. I know olive trees are like 10 years.
I think you told
Asparagus
me before.
takes 3.
3 years?
3 to 4 years for asparagus because they produce shoots in those first years, but they are too woody and they are not edible.
Yeah,
But
also you have
in
to
those
harvest
years,
them and
they begin to produce and stretch out and reproduce and become bigger patches.
but also you have to it's backbreaking work to harvest asparagus because there's no such thing as a harvester for them. You have to do it entirely by hand.
Of course. And
So I don't
asparagus
know
is,
why
of course, an example.
Which would make it a perfect candidate for the aquaponic system we're looking into.
I
Yes,
don't know if
absolutely.
it would work well with aquaponics. It's a touchy plant.
It can be, absolutely. You know where you find it more often than not? You find it hiding under logs in the bottom of riverbanks. It's a bog plant.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I grew up around farming. I've learned what works and doesn't work up here.
See, and having someone who has the background in farming, we're going to need you. We're going to need you. We are absolutely going to need you.
Mind you, I'm not a farmer. I've just worked on farms.
Perspective and experience does not always equate to paid experience on paper, but it does equate to real life experience, and that is just as important.
It's
All
like
knowledge is good knowledge.
Exactly.
you can't really grow corn aquaponics because it's a bulk product. And at the
Mhm.
same time, if you give it too much water, it kills itself. But if you don't give it enough water, it kills itself.
Corn is interesting, especially these day and ages.
Mhm.
Goodness. But I'm not going to get into GMOs now. That's a different entirely different topic.
So real quick,
Um,
while we're still talking
mhm.
about plants, we just got a message from the traveling gamer that says, "Please tell me apple trees would fall under perennials. We can make apple cider vinegar."
Take
There's
forever
a
to grow.
lot more that you can get from apple trees than that. Yes,
You can
absolutely.
get
Apple trees can be done.
you can get apples, and you can make apples into all kinds of things. And I'm not going to go on the Bubba Gump rant about what things you can turn them into.
So
I couldn't say it better myself.
So, fun little fact about my backstory is I actually used to go to an orchard a lot because orchards have always been something in my family. My grandparents owned great grandparents owned an orchard, and we actually still have the sign from said orchard in my parents' backyard right now. So, apples have always been a big thing in my family. So I can go on that Bubba Gump rant about apples too. So we're definitely going to have plenty of apple trees of all different kinds on the commune. If anything, just because I want it. That's if that's the only thing that I get to say, no, this is what we're doing, it's going to be that.
And that also opens us up to doing a lot of really fun stuff with, like, I know you're already saying your bubblegum rant on that, but like alcohol and distilling, if we can get licensing for that, that's a potential income stream.
And a
do
boon of
small
one at that.
Then of
we can do
course,
ciders and all the fun stuff.
Now to wrangle the attention back from Brosif Appleseed for a moment, we are going to move into sheltered eggs. Tents are cool, but we have better options, guys. 2-man cabins. This is a thing that has been used in working crews since back when we first started expanding. It's something you can whip together in a couple of days that are actually intentionally made so that way when it snows, it creates its own insulation. These are individual builds that can be done quickly, can be done with minimal lumber, and can be continuously used well after we've outgrown them.
What do they
Now,
look like? I'm like kind of just drawing a blank. Is that the ones that are like
I believe I
half
sent a
dug into the
schematic of
ground?
the father, but that was a while ago, so I don't know if he still has it. If he doesn't, I can absolutely pull it up and get it sent over to you guys, because these are basically like studio apartments without an extra room for a bathroom. That's the big difference. We would still need the facilities for things like that. Again, these are day one structures I'm talking about.
This is when it
But
still looks
on
like
that
the
same
KOA campsites type deal.
Now, on top of that, we should also be thinking about how we're going to be building our homes once we get past day one. I would love if everyone would consider cob housing. It is one of my favorite types of housing at the moment. It's something that is sustainably built. It is something that is sustainably sourced more often than not, and can absolutely be sustainably sourced if we're doing it ourselves. It's something that we need minimal lumber for, and it is incredibly insulated. It is incredibly intuitive. I have resources all about cob housing if we would like to talk about that further. It's just something I'm bringing up as a bullet point here. But yes, it is absolutely worth deep diving on if you guys are interested.
I've literally never heard of it before today.
How-
I googled it, and I'm like,
Question.
yes.
You've never heard about cob housing? Oh my gosh. So I am absolutely going to have to share resources for you guys.
Okay. One thing to note, cob houses do not work well up here.
It would be, and see, this is a thing that we have to take environment into account as well. Cob housing won't work everywhere, obviously. If you've got the kind of area that you can't get things to dry properly, it's not going to work.
You're not going to be able to get a cob house to dry as soon as. So we basically, in New England, it is January to March is sort of a cold and wet. And then you move into April where it's raining, and then May where it's dry, and then it's 100% humidity in the summer, and then it's raining, and then snow.
See, and again, this is a thing that this is one of the things that we have to take into account for environment. If we are coming into an area, we have to know what this looks like. Whatever we decide as far as where we're going, that's how we have to start planning. Once we've got a spot settled, then we can get into that.
So that's why I said Quonset huts, because they were, for the longest time, super popular cheap homes in Connecticut and New England and Massachusetts, up into Maine, because as soon as it snows, it gets its own insulation barrier.
I
Well-
absolutely love the Quonset huts because they are quick and easy to throw together, and you can fill them with whatever the hell you want.
You can
Another
also
thing to
bury
remember,
them.
guys, another thing to remember is we're talking about day one shelters at the moment.
Yeah, we can set up a Quonset hut in 2 hours.
Yeah, it is
Exactly.
really easy to set them up.
They were meant for the Pacific Campaign Theater of War in World War II as rapid deploy shelters.
See, and this thought process, this back and forth, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is how we go from just talking about all of this to actually implementing sustainability. This is perfect. You guys are doing great. I'm very proud of you all. Thank you. And actually, on the list, I was talking about on the list that I had made, bunkhouses that can be repurposed for either recreational or multi-purpose buildings are going to be a necessity. So that's absolutely one of those things that we should be looking into. Because like you said, you can fill it with whatever you want.
There are some original World War II bunkhouses in Massachusetts that now park full-size semi-trucks.
And there you go.
I've worked out of some Quonset huts. You can easily park big trucks in them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we set one up and we use it for initial housing and fill it with cots and stuff, we can later tear the walls out for the privacy walls and use it for whatever.
Exactly. And whatever we tear out can be repurposed. That's the other half of it. As long as we are maintaining those ideas as we move forward, we are maintaining sustainability. Now, on the topic of shelter, I would love to talk about living fences. These are something that has been implemented even in poorer countries where they are trying to, again, this falls back into food forests. There is a current push where they're going to small farm communities overseas in very poor areas. They're teaching them how to take portions of their farmland and turn it into a food forest for them, for their families and their communities. And part of that is in the first year, they start what is called a living fence. And that is taking trees, bushes, things of that nature that will grow together to form a living barrier. I can't overstate how much I enjoy the idea of living fences. It saves on material cost because you're using a bare bones chain link fence. Some people use just posts and wood.
It does look nicer
wood
too.
poles, yes.
Oh,
Yes,
so you're going
exactly.
British now. Hedgerow.
We must.
That's absolutely
down
possible. If we
and-
wanted to do hedges, we could do hedges.
We are the knights who say knee.
You must bring us a shrubbery.
Not too large, not too small.
Yes, shrubbery. Excellent. But when you think about that, when you think about living fences, how hard is it to get over a chain link fence?
It's
Most
really
people
not
don't-
hard.
Really not hard.
Exactly. How much harder is it to try and climb through a blackberry bramble?
Ow.
It's a pain in the ass.
I'm of the opinion you
Exactly.
should just drive through it.
Exactly.
And it's
Now,
mixed in
you
rose
know,
bushes.
driving through it's an idea until one of the sturdier plants just goes right through your tire.
Forget your tire. What happens when it goes through your radiator?
That's an even better point.
Or your
You'll get
oil
stuck
pan.
at some point, and then you become part of the fence.
Exactly. You've
fences.
just made the fence stronger.
Yeah, I'm the
Exactly.
person that's been like, oh, you need to drive through this? Yay, D8 time.
Living fences also help with attracting pollinators, which help with a lot of different things, like other plants that we're farming, orchards, and all that.
And maybe
Yes,
having
exactly.
an apiary to help pollinate all this.
Traveling Gamer
Absolutely
actually says
doable.
something about Traveling Gamer actually says something about food producing living fences. There we go. Oh,
Yes. Yes. And that's why I brought up blackberry brambles. They are sharp, they grow dense, and they are very hard to get through and produce food.
Blueberry bushes are great too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing about living fences is that this isn't something that's going to degrade the older it gets. It's only going to get more secure as it ages. And bottom of the list, these can be made out of food too, y'all.
Everything is food. Everything.
Exactly. Everything comes back to people, to food, to planet, to profit.
And all of this
We're
stuff
building a gingerbread house.
for later.
Gingerbread house.
We're building a gingerbread co-op. Everything is food.
You can eat
Everything
anything
here is
except for the
edible.
people. That's called cannibalism.
Just because society frowns on it doesn't mean it's not food.
I mean,
Technically
We're
it
getting
is,
away
but that
from that
doesn't mean you
subject.
should be eating it.
I mean, everything's food if you're brave enough.
sometimes it's only food once.
Yes, but
Yeah,
finding
but
somebody willing or stupid enough to cook some of these things may be the difficult part.
What do you mean, Silver? We can get you, don't you? Don't you mean we can get you?
There are a
I'll
few
buy you a
things
new
that
cast iron. It'll be fine. But to unfortunately move away from my favorite topic, we do have to go back to community, which is my second favorite part of this, so that's okay. We have to think about what are we bringing our people? What do we want to offer the people who come to us? And what can we bring? What can we do to bring our community together? We need to figure out, first and foremost, how we're going to reach out to more of our own people, because we've got a good start to our group here. We really do. But we also need to start doing outreach so that way we can reach more. Because bottom line, we need people to make this work. Sure, 6 of us out in the forest can do some damage, but an
Yeah.
army of us out in the forest can make change. That's the difference.
If we can get the entire Discord, which is what 330 people now,
See, incredible numbers already. If we can continue to cultivate this, we have a real shot of creating something real, creating
350.
hope. Exactly. And when we take into account what we can offer to the immediate communities as well, I don't just mean what can we give them in the form of physical goods. What can we offer them that they don't already get from their own communities? One of the things that I have noticed within small town communities, they forget about the young people. They forget about the future generations. What do they have to do? Has anybody heard the joke about, oh yeah, you live in a small town, so what we do for fun is we go and drive down to the Walmart and walk around aimlessly for a few hours?
Exactly. We could have all sorts of options for shenanigans. We could have off-roading trails. We could have a little amphitheater where we'd have concerts.
Not even
Heck,
that,
even
No,
but
it
just
would
an
rain.
arcade can make a world of a difference in a child's life. Think about the one place that you had as a place of solace. And was it not a place where you and your friends could go have fun?
Wouldn't even be
You
that
know what
hard to
would-
build an off-road bike trail.
You know what?
not
Bring
even-
a bunch of
Exactly.
people in. If
Not
if
even,
we're
like-
remote, we're remote. Having a NRA certified gun range on site that people can rent out time on would probably bring in a ton of people.
well, also
That's also a great option.
but like not even like specific purpose built areas. In some cases, I know, Witchy, you mentioned arcade. I don't know if you're talking about specifically like a video game arcade, but arcades also refer to just large areas that people can group and congregate, do their own thing, like a
Oh.
park or something.
Exactly. And
Camping-
the
camping
bottom line
areas
is third
where people
spaces.
do bonfires.
Yeah, bonfires are another great one. The bottom line
cool.
and the main point is third spaces. If you guys have ever heard of that, it's a spot other than work or home that you can go, congregate, and interact.
Like, say, a
We-
library.
Yeah, that's another great example. But we as a country, as a society, we're starting to see the eradication of third spaces. It's become especially for children and young adults. We are seeing so many people without anywhere to go. When you hear about people talking about outreach programs in neighborhoods that are struggling, one of the first things that you often see are places like athletic clubs, because they're trying to offer a third space, an option outside of work, home, school, etc. Because without those, there's no place to go just for the sake of de-stressing.
Yeah, it's not like you necessarily need a place specifically built to do a thing. You could just have a big field and go, there you go, have fun.
Yeah, a great example of that, I came from a community that had what was called a walking path. And what it was just a spot that was made accessible for people to walk through in the middle of what was a densely packed area that was all nature. So you could walk through the trees, walk through the flowers in a place where you weren't going to have to hike through it. From people on bikes to babies in strollers to people in wheelchairs, everyone could come and enjoy this space. And that's what I'm talking about. It's just making a place where people can come and congregate.
Though having an indoor space to do this as well would also be really good because snow.
Yes, of course. And that's why you have to think about both sides of that.
And it's like it should part of part of like what Witchy is saying. It needs to be accessible for everybody. And one of the things that I noticed, specifically in my hometown, we have an athletics club, but it still costs money to go to that athletics club.
And that's a great example of limitations being put on third spaces.
Exactly.
And one of the things we could do as a community is, here's an athletic club space. It's going to cost you, like the club you want to do, $20. And there'll be a few hours every day, like say from 3 to 6, where it's just, hey, do whatever. Come in, have fun, open to the public. And you can rent times.
Something that would help with outreach too, and getting people to be wanting to come there, is we could do a either reduced or free meal for children under a certain age or something. So families will want to bring their children for food and offer cheaper meals for them. I mean,
that was actually one specific example I really wanted to bring, and I'm really glad that she mentioned that.
Now, this might be a radical common thought, but maybe just like once a week, just do, hey, come on down and get some dinner, and we cook for.
There are community meals that I love. Absolutely, and see, one of the biggest things that we would benefit off of that is we are getting the people who come to those things aren't people who are too proud to ask for help. The people who come to those types of things are people who understand outreach and who understand the importance of giving back to community. So when they show up there, if they see that we've got volunteer projects that we're looking for people for, who do you think is going to be the first people to sign up for that?
The people who benefit from them.
Now we're kind of running to the end here, so I'm going to go ahead and run my little conclusion, and then if we've got any questions, we can get through those. There's a quote that I love: "The one who plants trees knowing that he will never sit in their shade has at least started to understand the meaning of life." I will not attempt to say the name of that. I don't want to butcher it, but it rings true no matter where you look. Without planning for our future, we will never see our future. These are insanely uncertain times, but we can't allow the fear we feel to stop us from carving out a path for not just ourselves, but for our future generations. We're not doing this for us. This whole project is not for the talking heads that you see on the screen. It's for everyone. We are doing this for everyone who comes after us, because we have to, as the current generation, forge a future for our children, for our children's children, that not only offers community and guidance and outreach, but hope. That's the end of my talk. Thank you guys for having me. I do appreciate it. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in.
Traveling Gamer had a good idea about do a monthly movie night that's free to attend with a classic Disney movie or something.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, here's another thing.
We could host a community dinner and movie night where it's like, man, just show up, get some food, and we're not gonna market it towards, are you hard up on cash? Are you having a hard time getting food? Come on down and feed your kids. No, it's, hey, we're having dinner. Come on down. We'll have a movie after.
See, I don't want to say this in a religious sense, obviously, but when you look at churches and the way that they do it, the way that they phrase it is it's just a community night. Come down, get some food, watch a movie. We don't have to make it about, we know it's hard times, we just have to make it about, come down and see us. Come down and see the movie. Have a night off of cooking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. Especially if we do it on the weekend when they're already trying to just gear up and get through the chores they've got to do for the rest of the work week.
But also another thing, the place that would have the movie, the place that they would be eating at, that's the big community center. That's the food court. If I remember correctly, one of our plans is we're already providing meals at either discount or free for community members. So anyone who comes from the outside, they're getting that as well. We're not exactly charging anybody because all of that's being funded by the community through efforts, not necessarily monetarily, but by, it's the community members who are harvesting the food for the ingredients for what we're eating, and the community members who are, working on the power, building it, all of that stuff. The community itself is already paying for all of that for itself to benefit themselves. Exactly. So if people from the outside come in, see this, and enjoy it as well, like Witchy was saying, the people who recognize that outreach are more likely to join said outreach too.
And Silver will back me up on this. If you're cooking when you're cooking for 150 people, it really doesn't take that much more effort to scale it up to 200. You're already cooking
That's
for
for you, cooking in bulk.
exactly. Like, yeah, you're gonna pay more for. The only thing you're really doing is adding more ingredients. That's it. It's not really going to take that much more time and effort to cook for 150 more people.
Right. Do you know what it takes to go from a gallon of gravy to 50 gallons of gravy?
More water?
More pots.
More water.
More biscuits?
Well, if you're using a large steam jacket kettle, which I'm going to push for whenever we get around to actually playing in the kitchen, just as a future note.
Absolutely. And I'm going to find you one of them big commercial grade mixers.
Oh, yes, please.
I know where we can buy those.
I do too.
Going up in size from gravy takes a little bit of extra oil and flour and hot water and whatever stock you're using, and you can get dry stock. And it literally takes just having boiling water, and you can go from a gallon of gravy to 50 gallons of gravy in about 5 minutes.
And there you go.
So learning to scale up and down on any sort of large quantity is a huge thing and really easy to do. It just takes a little bit of math and some practice.
The only thing that would be a time suck is if we're doing like mashed potatoes and we're starting with raw potatoes.
We may be
cause.
we may be starting with raw potatoes until, like, unless we're preserving them first.
Oh, that was an entire section I didn't get a chance to talk about. Preserving food. I'm gonna have to come to y'all with that again on an entirely different podcast, I think, because I would go way too hard on that topic.
Talk to me about that one off the actual podcast, and I've got
absolutely. Me and you will correspond on that.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you, Witchy, for the presentation.
You are very welcome, and thank you for the help.
Yeah.
And if we get one of those mobile food trailers like we were looking at for starting out, hang on to that and go, oh, there's some things going wrong. Who wants to eat?
There you go. And again, it's all back in that big circle, that big happy circle.
Okay, so I'm reading the chat from Twitch, and Traveling Gamer is talking about, if you want to buy some of our jams and jelly, feel free, but have fun. And then talking about candying things, jams, jellies, and other stuff. I just had a thought from that. What if we also, in the community center, we also have a kind of store for visitors?
A farmer's market, essentially.
Yeah, farmer's market. Like, it's a permanent fixture filled with all of our jams, jellies, foods, jerkies, whatever we're selling to, the outside world when they come and visit.
Something that I was going to bring up later. Specifically, I am working on doing breads and jams and learning more about that and finding the proper way to do that. And when this is an artisan, something to kind of put our own stamp on it. But that's something that's coming down for me in a little while.
We could have our own.
Absolutely correspond with you on it as well. Jams, jellies, breads. That's something I do very well.
we could have our own little like produce store.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just have it within the community center or right next to the community
And
center.
if we're doing that all off of locally grown, locally sourced, especially our own locally grown, locally sourced, guess what else we can do? Competitive pricing, which brings in more people, because if you know that the little co-op on the outside of town has what you need for way cheaper, you're going to take that trip.
And we can also partner with the surrounding farms and go buy some of their stuff of a little bit higher a little more than market value, resell it in our store for less than what the big box store is selling it for, because we don't got to do all the stuff in the middle.
Or even just offer them a space that they can bring their stuff. It's like a consignment.
And then also, not just produce and food or stuff, but, with there being craftspeople and blacksmiths and woodworkers, all of that fun stuff, we can also stock those into the store as well.
Have a whole general store.
This is sustainability. What you're doing right now, this is all sustainability. I'm so proud.
You don't realize it until it's pointed out that it is.
And I mean, like the business idea that Vikral and I had for helping to support the co-op of going out to like Ritchie Brothers and Gov Planet and the like, buying used equipment, fixing it, and reselling it. Because
That will
you're
probably
gonna
be a different store. That will probably be like
Oh.
a different store located a little
Oh,
bit
and-
away, but that too.
Yes,
yeah.
of course. That'll feed into itself because you're going to sell it for way more than you bought it.
And by making sure that that gets sold back into the local community, offering discounts to our locals, that's how we make sure that we're taking profit.
And depending on the size of the equipment, we could even offer free delivery. Little equipment like skid loaders that you can load on the back of a flatbed is one thing. But like, even if we go up to, I could work on getting my CDLA and like, oh, you need a 5-ton excavator? Cool, I'll drop it off.
No, you got charged for that, man.
It's all
Take
that's
it
part
from
of the
someone
community
who
building.
buys and sells and this stuff a lot. You're gonna want to charge for that kind of stuff.
Well, here's a
Even if it's
question.
just some pathetic small amount.
Here's a question. What about equipment rental too?
Don't get into
Yeah.
that.
Got
Don't
it.
do that.
Got it.
Don't
no
do
worries.
that.
We want
No
to get
worries.
into
No
rental.
worries. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
But what we could do is, again, for the disaster relief end of things, have some machines on site that, like, oh, what do we need for the disaster relief? We've got spares.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
A lot of times for disaster relief, you'll see the construction companies bring in their big equipment, but a lot of times it's skid steers, UTVs, mini excavators, stuff you can get into places that just don't have access anywhere else is what a
Just-
lot of times is needed at the beginning.
Go around to the
Yeah.
neighbors, go, who needs, can you get in and out of your property good? Yeah, cool. Next. So God forbid something happens right after it and they need to get to the hospital. They need to get to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we can make sure that happening. That would be very good.
Traveling Gamer also says something about summer season farmers market in a field. Rent out plots for the duration of the season. So I think the current idea is for the setup of the kind of center square is going to be there's this giant field in the middle that all of our major buildings are going to be around anyway. So I think we'll probably use that as the summer farmers market for people to go to because it's going to be the
Summer
center of town
farmers
anyways.
markets are always done better outside. That's my personal opinion. Feel free to argue with the wall.
And not to be mean to the traveling gamer, but they were suggesting a helicopter for medevac. No,
You know
we are
how
not getting in airplanes.
expensive
Yeah,
those
that
are?
was-
I have a
that was
father with
suggested a while ago.
helicopter. They are
We're
wildly
not
Now, if we
expensive
had
now.
one fall in our lap, that would be one thing.
No, we'd sell it promptly because
Yes,
so
Good.
my father bought his helicopter in 1985 when it wasn't super expensive, and nowadays, if you want to buy the same Robinson R44, you're looking at $500,000.
Oh my god.
We're going to
Yeah.
have.
I don't think we're working with
so,
that kind of revenue.
Okay. So we are going to have medical evacuation equipment, but because of where we're planning to be located, we're not going to be that far away from a major city or a major hospital, so that we're not going to need a helicopter anyways. We're going to have
so, like,
something, but
If
we're
we
not
wind
going
up
to
in
need a
Vermont,
helicopter.
we're gonna wind up in Vermont. You can get to like Montpelier, Vermont, within like an hour from anywhere else in the state, pretty much.
Exactly.
Which is where like the major hospital is.
so like
And then they can decide to move you to, say, like Mass General, Boston Med, Yale, or one of the specialty hospitals.
Here's
Oh,
my
absolutely.
question. I'm assuming we can get our own emergency vehicle ambulance type deal and run it as a private or quote unquote private service.
So we'd have
is
to
that
go through
gonna be easy?
certification, which is expensive. Light bars are cheap. That's like a $200 permit for light bars. We'd have to go through American Medical Association certification for EMTs.
So it's a lot
You're
of
looking at a few
certifications and
$1,000 for an
licenses and
ambulance.
such. But compared
Yeah.
to a helicopter, it's so much cheaper, I'm assuming.
Like, we could
Oh,
get brush trucks for property use. We don't have to certify them because they'd be entirely just
But-
for the farm.
What I'm getting here to though is if we have an emergency vehicle and it's certified and such, how much time does that cut down on that hour of travel?
That's a really good point.
With an ambulance, you need about a 20 by 10 foot space to park it. With
Just
a helicopter,
dedicated.
we're now looking at 100 by 100 foot space just to park it, plus another 100 by 100 foot space to maintain it.
Which is why I'm saying, EMT vehicle. Ambulance is going to be
yeah.
much better.
I'm going to be honest with you. We wouldn't need our own ambulance per se. We could get something to haul someone down to the main highway where an ambulance can meet up with us. Because that's how a lot of it
Exactly.
works in New England is.
There we go.
When
And
we
this
had
could even be
accidents on the
step by
farm
step
I was
type
working
thing.
at, when we had accidents on the farm I was working at, we would throw the guy in the bed of the truck literally throw them in the bed of the truck with someone else back there and drive him to the main road where we would meet up with the fire department, who would prep him while we waited for the ambulance.
Now, what I was going to suggest is that while we're probably definitely not ever going to have our own helicopter, doesn't mean we can't have an area that is clear and kept clear for a landing if there's ever a need to have one come to us directly.
Oh
Yeah, we
yeah,
could always-
we can always use that. Again, the kind of main town square is going to be pretty clear for gatherings and such. That
I
can
mean,
be
if
used
we
in a
get-
pinch for a helicopter.
If we get enough land, we can easily put in a grass runway. My Boy Scout camp had one. It was an open field that we could, in a pinch, turn into a runway for a bush plane.
So
And,
it's if we were to get to the point where we needed our own medical evacuation equipment, we can go with an ambulance. But before we get to that point, we still have options and abilities that we don't need to worry about getting our own helicopter.
yeah. I don't think we're ever going to have a helicopter.
Aww.
They are way
That would
too
be something that
expensive.
we'd have to see
I'm
an
kidding, I'm kidding.
unprecedented amount of success in our co-op.
A lot of the emergency service companies here lease helicopters because they're just so wildly expensive to try and maintain. I mean, my state police in Connecticut, we have tons and tons of funding for our state police. They still fly around in a Huey that came directly out of Vietnam War.
Oh gosh,
Hey, if it works, it works.
it works.
I know,
That's all I'm
but
gonna
like
say.
the state of Connecticut has tried to upgrade twice, and they have fought back, saying that the Huey is the cheapest helicopter to maintain,
It kind of is.
Validation.
It kind of is.
and it's full analog.
Please tell me they mounted speakers on it just so they can play Fortunate Son, though.
They have done that twice now.
Yes!
It should be in the Hall of the Mountain King, but hey.
Hey, if
Well,
it's
they
speakers,
did.
they can do either.
They do a lot of Flight of the Valkyries.
Ah, there we go.
Even better. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you everybody for joining me today. Bomb Carnivore, Silver, Vickrel, and Witchy, pardon me. Thank you so much for joining. And special thanks to Witchy for putting this presentation together. Anybody got anything else to say before we leave?
Not today.
Not today.
Be safe.
I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
For some reason, they're speaking Vietnamese.
And if you don't stop cutting them down, I'm coming for your knees. So with that, I'm going to leave everybody with the same send-off that I always got in the military. Don't create life. Don't destroy life. Don't get in jail. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Don't do anything I would do. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Remember to hydrate.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This has been the Gateway to Eden podcast. Please join us again.